Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cristo Rey Network College Fair. This is one of our panels, Ask Me Anything Forum. We have some fantastic presenters, and I won't let you listen to me for too long. We'll get straight to it. But your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. You can use, and obviously in this session, as the presenters will share, we encourage you to use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Again, this is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the schedule on the website. And this presentation is being recorded and will be available at strivescan.com/Cristo-Rey. I will now turn it over to Stephanie. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah, and welcome students and parents if you're joining us on this Wednesday evening. I'm Stephanie Arias. I'm the Vice President of College Initiatives at the Cristo Rey Network. I'm based in the national office in Chicago. I know many of you are based all over the country across 24 states and 38 high schools. And I also know that there's not always a lot of opportunity to connect with college admissions and financial aid experts without this like super formal agenda, maybe like in the classroom wearing your uniform, feeling like you have to ask only certain types of questions. And so we're excited to just have an opportunity for you to ask any question of these three folks who aren't here to just represent their own university, but to really kind of impart their wisdom and experience with each of you. And so on today's webinar, I have three incredible colleagues that I've gotten a chance to work with over the last few years. We have Roderick Rose at the University of Denver. We've got Ruben Burnley over at Dominican University here in Illinois. And we've got Will Torres, who's an education and equity consultant that has previously worked in admissions at several different colleges and as a college counselor in the high school setting. So on both sides of the table there. With that, I think what I'll do is I want to remind you to get your questions going in the Q&A, not in the chat box in Zoom, but the Q&A box. So go ahead and start sending me those, and I will ask our illustrious panelists those questions as they come in. And but I want to kick us off with a couple of initial just sort of prompts to our three panelists. Don't feel like you all have to respond to all three, but answer whichever of these questions maybe inspires you. So let's start with like a really easy one. Tell us where you went to undergrad and tell us like maybe just your favorite memory from your time there, or in this season that we're in right now of admissions experience and talking to students probably left and right. What is the kind of wildest question that someone asked you right now? Let's just put that wild question out in front of these students right now. So favorite memory from college, wildest question you've been asked by a student in these last few weeks. Go ahead.
I'll jump in with the undergrad. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you, Ruben and Rob. Good to see you always, Stephanie. I went to the College of Worcester, which is in Worcester, Ohio, a small private liberal arts college. And I had a lot of great memories there. I met people from all over the world. I joined a fraternity, I played sports, I had a radio show. I just had an experience I could not believe. But my favorite memory, there's a tradition of riding lunch trays down the hill when it snowed. And I tried like 20 times and I fell so many times. And there was a lot of people who would steal a lunch tray out of the cafeteria and try to ride it down. And I spent, an hour trying to do that. And it was really silly and it was really fun. And I'll never forget one of those just little traditions.
Love that, Will. Thank you. And representing at Worcester, that's great. Thanks, Will.
Hi, everyone. Ruben Burnley from Dominican University. I actually did my undergrad at Rockford College, which is now Rockford University in Illinois. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky. So going 6 hours away for college was a great experience. I was also a college athlete as well. I was involved in a lot of different club organizations. I think Will took one of my favorite traditions. We had a big hill in the back of our campus. I didn't really like the hill because I was a college soccer player, and that's where our training was at hill. So being able in the wintertime to be able to get a tray or cardboard to sled, maybe had better memories of that hill, but usually during the fall and spring, it was not my favorite memory of that hill. But another one of our history is something that is called one of the hall had a Follies Day where each room had a different activity or some funny activity to be involved with. And so that was kind of getting a chance to meet upperclassmen and other students that not Dominican, but at Rockford, and get that experience and knowing something that was tradition. And then literally when I graduated, I met someone that graduated from the same university 20 years before me, and they talked about their fine memories with doing these Follies Days. So, and I know the Follies Days are still one of those traditions at Rockford.
Thanks, Robin. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Rod Rose at the University of Denver. Great to see you, Will and Ruben and Stephanie. Great to work with you again. Unlike Will and Ruben, I was not a college athlete, so those who can't play coach. So I ended up coaching at a Cristo Rey school at a Rupe Jesuit nearly after my undergrad, or just shortly after my undergrad, or maybe in my senior year of undergrad. But I did go to the University of Denver. I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. And since this will be recorded, I must say that my favorite college memory is meeting my spouse. I met my spouse in orientation of first year on campus during our first orientation week. So there cannot be evidence out there that I did not say that was my favorite memory. So I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah, that's a wise man, Rod. Go ahead and state that. That's good. Okay, so we've shared favorite memories. Let's see, I'm gonna butcher some names here, but we've got Yolanda, who's a parent, we've got Victor, we've got Rodrigo, Luis, Kiara, Juan, Jaden, Daniela, and Cordesia. We're excited to see your questions. Yeah, who's ever throwing confetti? That's great. So we're excited to see your questions. I thought it was you, Will. So let's see, what are the questions that you've been getting from seniors lately? And like not the softball questions, right? Not the does your school have this major? It's like, golly, use Google. But like, what's it like in terms of social life and not just at your campus, but in college generally? Like, how are students supposed to even figure out their social lives, whether they're staying in the city that they're from or moving across town? Because that's one I hear a lot. So maybe that's one that you want to comment on.
I'll jump into that one. I mean, one of the questions like that with social life is you can find your niche pretty much at any college. It's just a matter of what you want to get involved with. All the colleges, they want that perfect student that has a 4.0 GPA and possibly have a 32, but how are you going to enjoy yourself? What do you like to be involved with? If it's a part of like an academic club, being able to be a part of that, or it's even ethnic clubs that offer and everything else. But also find out, life after college, not just your experience, but if they have opportunities for internships, opportunities, or even shadowing or a mentor program, because that's going to help you out as well too, as you look past your 4 years and beyond at the institution.
Thanks, Ruben. That's great.
I would quickly add, my sister is actually a senior applying to colleges right now, and so I don't get as many questions as I'd like, but the advice that I really try to press on her when she thinks about visiting colleges is finding yourself, finding you 2-3 years from now. That is however you identify. So maybe that is a queer student organization, maybe that's soccer players, maybe that is finding someone from your ethnic group or your faith. When you get the opportunity to visit college, find someone who is walking in those steps that you'd like, or who should be walking in those steps and maybe is not afforded the opportunity. So I think kind of finding your niche sometimes means making your own niche. But it also means seeking out people. If you're a cellist, find your fellow cello lovers. If you're a baseball player, talk to some coaches, see the stadium, see the weightlifting facilities, really check it out and dig in. And that doesn't mean that you have to go to campus. You can also email professors and faculty and coaches and administrators to get more perspective. But try to envision yourself in the future 2 or 3 years ahead.
So Will, as a piggyback there, we have a student who's asking about did you go to college with any of your friends? And if you didn't, how'd you find your clique? And so you're talking about finding that hobby or that passion of yours, and then kind of pursuing that, and then finding people along the way. What if maybe you don't know what your thing is in terms of an extracurricular or a hobby, and let's say like you didn't go with your friends to school? Like, what do you guys think about that?
I'll jump on it and then get out of the way. I want to make sure my brothers can speak. I did not go to go to college with anyone I went to high school with, and that was on purpose. A lot of my classmates and teammates went to Oberlin College, and I really wanted to reinvent myself and find my own way, and I wanted to figure that out. So I think that there are some really great ways to do that. One, focus on your grades. Remember why you're there. You're there to go to school. So get a nice strong GPA. I waited a whole year. I didn't do the football frat or the black frat or any intensive processes until I got my grades right. And once I had a 3.7, then I started to explore some of those other clubs and organizations. So focus on your grades, be open-minded, recognize that you're going to meet new people all the time, and just explore. Like, I think that a college is a great opportunity to find talents and interests that you never knew you had, whether that's a foreign language or study abroad or intramural sports. There's just so many ways to explore. I say be open and focus on your grades. Remember why you're there. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Get your grades and then join some clubs.
I'd love to jump in and add to that I do want to share that colleges do want you to be connected. So their colleges are going to provide opportunities to meet clubs and organizations. Maybe that's during an orientation. Maybe that's as soon as you get admitted in admitted student events to meet some of their current students and hear about activities. It'll likely also be over the summer, and maybe that's online communities and shared spaces. So you will have a lot of opportunities to meet those groups and to find those friends, and being open, as Will mentioned, to those new possibilities. Maybe you're going to go to a club meeting because they're going to go to go-karts and you really like go-karts. You can just join clubs because they're doing an activity that you would enjoy doing. And there's so many possibilities in college. One thing that helped me find my community was pursuing some of the programs that I was already interested in high school, such as Black Student Alliance and Latin Student Alliance. So those are a couple of clubs that I decided to join in college based on some of my interests in high school.
I can jump in as well. I'm gonna be a dream crusher and say that you know what? Sometimes your high school best friends are not going to be your lifelong best friends. So it's good to explore. I think out of high school, I mean, I went to a very large high school and I probably had 7 good friends that I had in high school. But when I left and went to college, I probably gained 25 good friends, and that 7 dwindled down to 3 that I still stay in communication with. I think going to college, even as commuter or resident students, these are friends that you're going to be in the trenches with, studying for a chemistry exam till 1 a.m, or being a part of a club organization, or going to a gaming night or a movie night or something like that. So you kind of build that friendship opportunities. So going away to college or going to college with a friend, it could be good, but then also it might be good for having distance. Distance make the heart go fonder. I think that's what he told me. So being able to do that, and maybe, if that friend, your high school friend might still be that friend later on, but your college friends are probably going to be the ones that are going to be with you for life.
Yeah, I bet the same might be true if we're talking about going with a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a partner, right? Like, I'm hearing a lot of like, I mean, yeah, that could be fun, but just don't bet on it, right? So I'm gonna crush some dreams too and say, just don't bet on it. And maybe. Oh, what? Go ahead, Will.
When you said bet, I just had to say that we did bet on it on the football team. When we would see freshmen who would come in with a significant other, we would take bets on who would make it to Thanksgiving, and only one ever did. You're usually going to outgrow people, right?
Yeah.
They're in your life for a reason or a season, sometimes a lifetime, but usually one of the first 2.
Yeah, right. And like, and maybe the like for some people, it might be that like what you want is kind of the story that Rod had. Like maybe you're going to meet your significant other in college, right? And that's really, really beautiful. But maybe it's not even that. Maybe, it's just that college is meant to be a time for you to just kind of like do your own thing and have your identity sort of open to explore your interests and not necessarily dating someone or the same person as you were in high school. So anyway, um, there's a question here about how a student might decide. So I'm like totally switching gears for a second, but we're talking about community. And I get a sense that community is kind of the source of this student's question. They want to know like how to pick between an HBCU and a PWI. And so before we even answer that question, can one of you define what HBCU it means and what PWI is, and then and then go into the answer to that question?
I can jump in. So HBCU, historically Black colleges, and usually most of those colleges are down south, but they are spread out throughout the country. So that means predominantly Black African-American students are attending those universities. PWI, predominantly white institutions. So that's meaning that predominantly white students are attending that university, but open for diversity or at those different colleges. In regards to that decision, I always tell students about a fit. My mother went to a HBCU school. In my college search, I had to look for HBCU school, and I looked for it. But the opportunities that I wanted to do did not have there, but I still went to go visit, did different things and everything else. But it's where you have a good fit with and the opportunities. Like I said, things that I was looking for in college was a political science program, being able to have a opportunity to play soccer, and then be able to explore different areas. And so, you just got to find that fit. And, there is one HBCU school that I definitely wanted to go, but I didn't match up with them. And in the school that it did match up, but it wouldn't match for me. So it's kind of a love connection. It's just got to find out where you got your good fit at.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in and echo and similar to Ruben, my mother also went to an HBCU and I also, as a prospective student many moons ago, as there's some grays in here, looked at both PWIs and HBCUs, and I certainly encourage students to visit schools, whether you're visiting a Hispanic serving institution or a HBCU, as we discussed, or PWI. I think just being able to visit and seeing if you can envision yourself thriving for 4 years. I personally had my heart set on the HBCU and went to visit, and it was not exactly what I expected in terms of my expectations before the visit. The curfews were one thing that threw me off personally, that I wasn't quite ready for. But I do wish I had the opportunity to visit even more schools of a wide variety. And certainly with virtual visits, it may give our students now some of those opportunities to have more visit experiences, even if it's not physically on the campus.
Yeah, if we have time, I'd like to handle this one too, if possible.
Yeah.
I'm a first gen student, so I think it's awesome. Both of you had folks who went to HBCUs. My uncle went to Wilberforce, but my mom and dad neither finished high school or college. And so being first gen, my choice was really on my own. And one of my last 5 was an HBCU, great school, Tuskegee University. And my father's side of the family is from Tuskegee. I think the question of how to choose between HBCU and PWI, I'd like to shift it to when to choose. I think that you should plant a lot of different seeds and apply to a lot of different sorts of schools, whether that's location or size or major or whatever it may be. Plant a diverse set of seeds. And then see who chooses you, right? You're working hard on applications, you're going to be selected, and then they're going to be begging for your attention. And so I chose in the end based on 3 things. One, financial aid. If I can't afford to go, then it doesn't matter how badly I want to go to an institution. Two, your visit, if you have the opportunity. I think Rod made a great point that you can do online visits. And then kind of your heart and your gut, right? You know what feels right for you and what's going to feel right. And then if we're being honest, the fourth bonus one that kind of replaces the heart is your family, right? Like your folks are going to be a big factor in where you go. And so, you know, I wouldn't choose right now. I would choose in March, you know, in April. But I would just try to make sure that you have great options on your list so that when it narrows, you have all the options that you deserve based on the work you've put into this point.
I love that. I love that. There were a couple common themes in there, students around visiting a school, at least trying to go in person, if not virtually. I loved Will's point about the timeline, right? Like the question is not relevant to date necessarily, because today it's all about casting that wide net. You want to make the choice in a couple of months after getting those aid packages. And then I loved what Ruben said about at the end of the day, you got to see if it's the fit. So like if it's the right fit across all those factors of importance to you, then that's where you go, and you'll weed out some options when you start evaluating for fit. So right on, that's a great question. We have a student who's asking, let's see, what services are in place for minority students? So still thinking about kind of the role or the experience, I should say, of perhaps being a minority, or let's call it like an underrepresented minority on a college campus. What kind of services might exist, or what kind of services should a student maybe look for as they're applying and selecting a college?
I feel like Will should answer this question first, but I'm gonna jump in front of him so I can promote Dominican. But one thing that I will say is that what you want to look for is like a multicultural office or multicultural center on college campuses to be able to find a space, a place that you can be able to go to so you can be able to utilize any resources. I know for our university, we have something called the Center for Cultural Liberation, which houses every walks of life, different ethnicity, different, undocumented, DACA students, any type of students that is unrepresented in the overall population, being able to go to. Also different clubs and organizations. I know we've all talked about being involved on campus and being able to see if they have a Latino Student Alliance or Black Student Union, LGBTQ population as well too. So being able to find those different things on the college campus, you can look that on the website. I know for our institution, there's a website for clubs and organizations, and you can put in everything that you're looking for if it's any type of program. And then the one thing that I always like about our Dominican's website is that, when you go to college, you're always looking for free food. You can actually check in free food, which club has it, and then you can be able to be part of the club. I know that went off the original question, but, definitely being able to find out resources that you have and utilize the resources that are on campus, because a lot of times those resources on campus also going to help you with off-campus opportunities in regards to internship, mentoring programs, and also jobs.
Thanks, Ruben.
I would say think about the supports that you need, right? If you want to make sure that you have mental health services on campus, or you want to make sure that there's a space for students who may be undocumented, or students from, like, what do you need? My niece just wants to be around other scientists and she doesn't care if they're Black. And so she may not need the Cultural Resource Center in the same way that someone else will, or she may not think she'll need it. She may actually end up needing it. And so find your people and think about what you need. Find out if you're going to need to start an organization or if you can just join a well-established outfit. And then ask difficult questions. Ask folks like Rod and Ruben specifically, how will you serve me? What resources are in place to serve me? And if they say you should email this person at this center, follow up, find out who those people are and find out how they'll serve you and what resources they already have. But I think that, thinking about what you need right now and what you may need will be really, really important.
Any red flags? Rod, maybe you take this one. So like, is there a red flag a student might notice? So the opposite of this question, right? Students are like, how do I know if a school is going to meet my needs, or a school is going to have resources for underrepresented minorities. Rod, in your experience, do you think there's such a thing as like a red flag that they might see in a college so that they know like, ooh, that college might not be serving underrepresented students all that well?
Yeah, great question, Stephanie. I think in my experience, I think that would go back in some instances to that visit and that research. And then maybe you discover that a campus that you are really interested in has a cultural center or something or multicultural center or something similar. And then you find that another institution doesn't.
Right.
Or some of those ratios. I would say that would be one thing that I'd be kind of concerned with, as far as what are the ratios of staff to student that those organizations are supporting, or those centers are supporting. Do they have full-time staff members who are supporting organizations, or are they part-time staff members who are supporting some of those individuals? So those would be some of the initial questions that I would have in terms of who's providing that service for students. I think those red flags overall can come up if there's something that you desire for your institution to have, and this institution that you're looking at either doesn't have those services, or they're not even thinking about maybe that gap in services needed for their institution.
Yeah, for sure. I loved this point about looking at like how institutions are staffing their initiatives. So like every single college right now in 2022 is every single college is going to say that they have some sort of commitment to like diversity and equity inclusion, right? But like, are you paying full-time salaries and benefits for people to actually do that work? Do you have a physical place set up, and is it just manned by one person, or are there multiple staff in place to like work with students and create programming? Or is it just a statement on your website? So I think that is spot on, Rod, to look at the staffing. Will's got his hand up. So what are you thinking, Will?
I love Rod's push to see where they apply their resources, and put your money where your mouth is, as they
Right.
say. I also think you can look at data, students and families. You can go to collegeresults.org and you can see what's the graduation rate for male versus female on a gender binary, unfortunately, or what's the Black grad rate, what's the Latin grad rate. Like, you can look at the data, you can ask for this data and see how they're doing so far with students from certain backgrounds, and that can be an indicator of how students are being supported. It doesn't tell the whole story, but the numbers are out there.
And Will, I'm going to take that data point one step further and say, when you look at that grad rate for African American or Latino students, look at the grad rate for the majority students as well, usually white students, and look if there's a big gap. Because it's one thing if a college has, let's say, a 50% grad rate for African American and Hispanic students and a 55% for the majority students. There's a 5-point gap, and you're like, all right, we can chalk that up to lots of things. But if there's a 20-point gap, a 15-point gap, a 30-point gap, you're like, oh, you're just not serving Black and brown students well, but you know how to serve other students well. So look at the data and compare the data at collegeresults.org, like Will said, or in the Cristo Rey College checklist, which if you just put the name of the college in, will pre-populate that information for you. Okay, cool. That was a nice soapbox moment for me, talking about the gap. Let's talk about being a college student. We have a student who's asking, how should one switch into a college mindset when starting college? And I don't know exactly what's meant by this question, so let's run with it. How do you switch to a college mindset once you're there?
I'll jump in because I'll relay information. I don't think anybody has a college mindset. I'm over 40 years old. I don't think I've ever been in a college
Love
mindset.
this answer.
But I would say one thing, if you want to be in that college mindset, is pay attention to details. Being able to follow, like, don't catch procrastination disease or anything like that, like making sure that you follow the deadlines. And, once you get into college, your professor is going to supply you a syllabus and tell you like what days are papers due or when there's going to be exams and stuff like that. And I know in high school, you got your schedules and everything else, but being able use your planner that you receive at every college to be able to apply to these different days. But I have my computer planner, I got my cell phone, but I also have a paper planner that I put on my desk to make sure I follow all those things. So I would say to get you in that mindset is be able to understand deadlines and try not to procrastinate and everything else. And I'm gonna be honest with you, and all of us have done this. We've all had a paper due on a Monday morning, and we've all started that paper on Sunday night at 11 o'clock. We understand, you've done it. It's probably not the best paper, but to your eyes it is. But you get about 3 freebies through your 4 years, but the rest of the times you want to make sure you follow that deadline and try to get that paper done at least about 2 weeks ahead of time to be able to utilize an academic resource center like a writing center to be able to look over your paper for mistakes or be able to understand the context that you're talking about.
Thanks,
Hope that answered
Ruben.
your question.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. That's one aspect of it for sure. Thanks, Ruben. Will or Rod, anything else you'd add in terms of like how does one get into the college mindset? Think about what it means to not have a college mind. Like, think of this students think, well, I'm a senior, they're a senior. They clearly maybe feel like they don't have the college mindset just yet. It's a different experience in high school when like someone is telling you when to go to class, when you're allowed to go to the bathroom, where to put your book bag. Like it is a entirely different experience than going to college. So what do you think? What would y'all add?
Yes, I'm happy to pop in. I would add that in my view, I do think it is harder to make it through college than to make it to college. So as far as finishing the goal and going through college, I think many students in the course of 4 years have peaks and valleys and highs and lows. But I think it's more enjoyable to stay in college than to have than to not make it. You will see and notice in your first year that there are going to be some students who are there your very first academic term who are not back after the new year. And maybe they had too much fun, or maybe something happened. But I think it is great to make it continue through college and enjoy that full experience. And that takes some discipline. And that's waking up and going to classes and taking great notes, like Ruben said, and meeting deadlines and doing what you need to do to handle business inside the classroom, and balancing that out with some fun outside of the classroom as well. And if you keep that balance, you can make it all the way through and enjoy a full college experience and not just one academic term or 1 year.
I'd love to jump on the tail end of this, and I think the different skills you're hearing, these are great gems. On the mindset side, I think you should just be prepared to fail and embrace adversity. They're going to shred your papers and tell you that they're not good. If you were the best soccer player on your team, guess what? You're going to be one of the worst soccer players on the college team. Everything that came easy to you should be harder. College is supposed to be harder than high school. So just get ready to take a lot of L's and brace yourself emotionally for losing and failing better all the time. And then I'd also say, have the mindset of staying ready so you don't have to get ready. And then lastly, find the smartest, most organized person in the room, usually a woman, and get in their hip pocket. That has always done me well, and that's why I already know these other 3 folks on the screen, because if I see a smart person who's directed, I just try to stay as close to them as possible. And the power of your friends and the people you hang out with will definitely be a factor in college.
Amen to that, Will. My mom would always say, "Tell me who you hang with, and I'll tell you who you are." And there's something in there that relates here, right? Like who you hang with, these people make you sharper. So I loved that point about finding the most organized folks and sticking close to them. My style was Ruben's style with like a paper calendar a lot of times, because if it wasn't right in front of me, I wasn't going to open an app. I'm the worst millennial in the history of millennials. I do not use technology the way I should. Paper calendar all the way. So with that in mind, bullet point list right now. Someone is asking what the best time management tools are in college. So time management tool, I'm going to say paper, like paper tool. Okay. I'm going to say Trello. I love Trello. and I like OneNote. Gentlemen, what do you all like in terms of time management tools? Maybe it's your handy dandy calendar only. I don't know.
I'll take a dive. I think I've gotten better. Stephanie, I'm with you on the not
Worst
being the
millennial ever.
best. Yeah, millennial portion, not executing technology in the ways that I could or should. But and I do find myself, I think, similar to what Ruben mentioned, is double noting things down. I may put it in an email calendar as well as write it down in a journal. And I think find it very helpful to kind of keep a planner, especially on times where I'm the most busy, and having reminders in multiple places. I have it in a written planner, but I also have some alerts on my calendar going off to remind me of when and where I need to turn projects in or get things done.
Emphasis on when you're the busiest, right? When you're the busiest is when you probably need the tool the most, whatever you decide to use, Daniela, whatever tool, use it when you're busy. That's the best time to use it. Will, would you add anything else to that?
No, I need to Google Trello and
Ah,
OneNote. I
yeah,
need to learn these new tools. But I'm the same way. I use Google calendars and I like to use the alerts, but I also like to write out my day, paper and
yeah.
pen always. I have a whiteboard on my desk that I can use, and I have a giant whiteboard that I use throughout the week to keep me right. So I am a very visual learner, and I think knowing your learning modality is really important. And so I know
Ooh.
that writing helps me retain, and I know that seeing it as soon as I wake up and color coding it works for me, and it takes more time, but you got to find the system that works for you, young people. That's the most important part. Trello might not work for you. An old planner on your desk may work for you. You got to find what works for you and stick with it.
Yep, yep. Okay, cool. I'm going to be faithful to the questions that are being asked. So real quick, Rod, at DU, are there any programs that you know of off the top of your head for physical therapists or sports management or therapist? Yeah, physical therapist or sports management. Do you know? Same to you, Ruben, at Dominican.
Yeah, so we have some pre-physical therapy programs for students to get their information to go on to graduate school for physical therapy programs. For management, we do have a business management, and we typically have students. We don't have a sports emphasis. However, I know we have a lot of students who will do sports with their internships. So they may be interning for a sports network, and that is how they're getting that sports lens to it. And to that same question, we also have programs, to that same student's question rather, we also have programs for students who are first generation students, or students who are identified as students of color, such as eSTEM for students, which stands for equity in STEM, as one example of some of those additional support programs for students of color or BIPOC students.
Awesome. So the University of Denver has like adjacent programs to what you're asking about, Kiara, and the idea that you can then attach internships that specialize in your area of focus. Like that would be your route there, or probably a number of institutions. Ruben, do you know off the top of your head, physical
That's the
therapy?
same for us. We have a pre-physical therapy track that we send students to a couple colleges in the Chicagoland area, but we also prepare them. They find a college that they want to go to. Maybe if they're coming from out of state, well, our academic advisor will be able to help create a plan for them to be able to apply for those programs. With sports management, matter of fact, our business program is a 5-year program where 3.5 years a student receive a bachelor's and a 1.5 years receive a master's. Being 10 miles from Chicago, some of our students are doing those internships at the big athletic programs like the Bulls or Chicago White Sox or Bears, but even a lot of minor league teams that are in the area as well too for opportunity for internship. And then also there is different clubs that affiliated with those different programs with the business, and then also with the health sciences as well too.
Thanks, Ruben. I think this question is going to come back to you first. Victor wants to know about managing the time as an athlete in college. So how did you manage your time as an athlete in school?
Great question. Matter of fact, not only I was a student athlete, I was also an athletic coach, Division III coach. And so I try to bestow my wisdom to some of the students Some of them have been successful, some have not. So I practice failure, Will, with that. But I will say you can manage your time. It's a little bit different from high school. You know, some of you guys have been institutionalized from 7:45 to 4 o'clock on most of your school days. In college, you might have a schedule where you meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday with a 9 o'clock class, 11 o'clock, and a 1 o'clock. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, you might have a 10 to 11:30 class, and then a 3-hour lab on Thursday to 1 to 4. So most of your times, most of your athletic programs might have practices in the afternoon, or they might have that dreaded 6 a.m. practices to try to get them done before, you know, 8 o'clock class. So usually your athletic coach will try to schedule it where most of the students are able to attend, but there might be times like that lab where you might have to make up your practice because you have to go to lab. But vice versa, let's say that you have to leave for a 6 o'clock game out of town and it's leave at 2 o'clock. It's your responsibility to be able to make up that work in that lab or classroom before and after. So usually what I tell student athletes is like, you get your sports schedule, you get your syllabus, cross-reference, and in the times that you know you're going to be missing class because of an athletic event, that's where you need to go approach that professor that first week of school, introduce yourself to them, and being able to let them know that you participate as a student athlete, but it's your responsibility to make up the work. And a lot of times they'll probably say, you know what, when you return back with a W, we'll be able to talk about, you know, how to do your lab or do your turn in your assignment or turn your assignment before you leave for that as well too. So being a student athlete and the key thing is student first, athlete second. It is being able to manage that time. And again, that's why I think I had that paper schedule where I can pinpoint things and then figure out a time where I could actually eat and also be able to do some weight training in between those times that you have.
Student first, athlete second. I love that, Ruben. Thank you. Those were all the questions from the group. So with the 2 minutes that remain, could each of you take 30 seconds to give any final bit of wisdom? What should students be prioritizing right now as seniors? Maybe what should they be asking of colleges as part of their kind of search process, or anything else that you might want to say? You got 30 seconds. Whoever wants to start. I'll give you some think time if you'd like, because it's got to be so wise.
I'll jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Utilize your resources. And when I say utilize your resources, connect with your college counselors, connect with your admission counselors of the schools that you want to go to, because they actually serve as your, I always like to say, lawyer for you to get in. So whatever information you can share with them, they're the ones that go to the admissions committee to help you out with assistance. Also, they're the ones that are going to probably help you out with scholarships. So utilize your resources with the college counselor at your school, the college rep, maybe your family, maybe a friend that goes to that college. Utilize that resources for you to be successful.
I'd love to jump in next. As far as, I'd certainly echo Ruben as far as teachers as a resource as well, as far as their college experience or neighbors or family friends, and also to just let your imagination wander. There's no bad reason to investigate a college or university, whether it's a city that you think you may want to live in, or a program that you have interest in, or the size of the campus or the demographics of the campus. So let your imagination wander and be open to discovery at this fantastic time in your life as a senior.
Those are both great insights. I would say just embrace the struggle. Senior year is really, really hard, and everyone acts like it's supposed to be fun, and then homecoming, and then prom, and then college, and there's so much struggle in between. So embrace the struggle, ask for help. Remember that you're not alone. You've got, you know, probably up to 100 people going through it with you. You've got teachers, counselors, family, community that cares for you, and that comes with pressure. But you know, just use your resources and ask for help and embrace the struggle. It's going to be hard in college. It's going to be even harder, but you're going to enjoy it and you're going to have a lot of fun and you're going to grow a lot.
That's great. That's all really, really solid advice. Thank you to Rod, Ruben, and Will, our fantastic triple threat here tonight who are given so much wisdom to embrace the struggle and use your resources and have fun while we're doing it. So thank you again. I'll turn things to Sarah to let us know what we do next.
I just want to echo that. What a wonderful panel and presentation. So thank you all. And thank you for joining us. And when you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 5-question survey, excuse me, and we'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. We encourage you to check back to the schedule and sign up for more sessions. You'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all of the other session recordings at strivescan.com/Cristo-Rey. Thank you so much and have a great evening.